Hello there, Impact Zone podcast. We are back here to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans, and of course, we're here to talk TNA Sacrifice. I believe it's 4 or 5 matches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. I was thinking was there 4 or 5 and losing count apparently. But anyway, yeah, 3, 4, 5 matches lined up here. I really don't know. Actually, I kind of do know kind of where to start. I guess it's between one of these two. I think I'll go ahead and talk about Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steelz versus Trey Miguel and Jada Stone first. This is not a very anything match, honestly. This could have been on any random TV episode. I'm sure, again, I don't want to just take anything away from the match itself. I'm sure it'll be a fine match and whatever else. And obviously, you're trying to build something up between Mustafa Ali and Trey, and you're also trying to build something up between Jada and Tasha. So, yeah, sure. But the thing is, this match could have happened literally on free TV. This isn't a match that you need to have, even though this is a B level pay per view or a C level pay per view or a Z level pay per view. I don't care what level of pay per view you want to think that these pay per views are. You could call it a DD pay per view or a ZZ pay per view or a Triple F pay per view. I don't give a rat's ass. The lowest level of the lowest level, infinitely down the bottom. I don't care. It's still a pay per view because it is sold as a pay-per-view. You can buy it as a pay-per-view. So it is a pay-per-view. So anyway, this just did not need to be on this pay-per-view. This is a fine match for TV or whatever. Give it 10, 15 minutes or whatever else it is. Let them go out there and kill it. That's fine. Same thing here. But yeah, for a pay-per-view, this is just not going to cut it, Chief. Yes, and the thing is, it's not like tag team matches, because again, it's not about tag team matches that can't go on pay-per-views. It's this specific tag team versus this other specific tag team, because you've got a faction, basically, in Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steelz, or aka part of Order 4, versus two people that have never tagged together. Okay? And I'm sure that they can tag fairly well together, but realistically, they're probably I don't feel like they're winning. I kind of feel like you've got to start saying, okay, get the drama onto the baby faces so that which is, my prediction for later, spoiler alert, when Trey beats Ali and when Jada beats Tasha, it's like a big moment for them because they've lost, sort of thing. So you've got that drama to keep people engaged and people, rooting for the babyface. So when they do win, and I don't know whether it'd be Rebellion, but it's very likely that's the next real big show. So yeah, I feel like that's where you're going with this. And I said this before, I feel like Mustafa Ali, he should be in the main event scene anyway. So, and again, maybe that is because it's we don't really have anyone else. And that's your problem right there. This title, I like the idea of it, but there just isn't enough people realistically to fulfill the next division. This extra division. And I think it's cool that Trey's got his moment and had the title and whatever else it is and all that stuff. And I think he's they're gonna have some good matches and some good moments and some good feuds here and there. But again, just concision. Just, cut down the number of things that you need in each division. Trey could be in the X division challenging somebody else or doing something else, or he could just be doing this and this just be an upper mid-card style feud. where Trey's trying to get to the world title and Mustafa Ali is trying to do the same thing, And I just don't see Mustafa Ali winning this belt, so he's not getting into that main event scene any quicker. So, and again, not that that's the only thing to do with him, but again, it's a pretty obvious thing that you should do with him, especially when Mike Santana needs as many challengers as what he can get. So it's again, people want to see Mike Santana and Ali again, because it's a thing that they really enjoyed last year. So again, just giving them what they kind of want, So, but anyway, yeah, I just don't. And maybe I don't know whether they'd fade away from this and just move on. But yeah, realistically, you wouldn't move along from this. But anyway, yeah, I just see that Ali and Tasha will win by interference from Order 4. And it's crazy that the good hands or the great hands, the hands, whatever you want to call them, they just do not get any matches, basically. They're just fodder. They might as well not even be part of this faction, realistically. They might as well just, again, I said this with a lot of people, they just need to do their own thing. And I'm going to talk about some of that stuff more with Moose as well later on as we get to him. But yeah, I'll get to that later. But anyway, that is my thoughts on that one for now, I think. Don't really have much more to say on this. All right, so the Hometown Man and Elijah versus AJ Francis and Frankie Kazarian. I'm basically going to say the same bloody thing here. This is a match fine for TV. It doesn't belong on this pay-per-view. I'm sure that, they will have a good match. But that isn't it, Chief. This could have been on any Tuesday night episode. And if you're trying to build something between either Frankie Kazarian or AJ Francis and Elijah, which is Elijah is the main star in this. And I know the Hometown Man is there and he has won a few matches here and there, even won a match tonight on AMC. But, he's not the main star. Elijah is the main star, So if you're only going to use the Hometown Man for little bits and bobs here and there, he's more of a joke character, and that's fine. I like joke characters. I like Shark Boy. I like Curry Man. I like those guys, and I like this gimmick. I like it very much, but it's just that you're not going to feature him in major rivalries for the most part. He's not going to be a top contender for anything. So, whereas Elijah might be, and so will AJ and potentially Kazarian. So, I don't really know where you're going with what you're going with. If you're going to go with AJ first, or you're going to go with Kazarian first. In my opinion, in some regards as well, I don't really care to see Kazarian. I know that a lot of people are kind of in that same boat, not just because he's a smarmy heel or whatever else it is right now, but we've seen what he can do, and he is very good at doing it, and maybe as a stopgap or whatever else it is, that's fine, but other than that, I just don't see the point in pushing him. He can be a semi-main event level guy and help get other guys over at that point or whatever else it is, but beyond that, I just don't see anything that he can actually do anymore. He's pretty much done everything. He's a legend. He deserves to, go out and have his last run and be, be amazing. And he did an amazing job tonight as well, in his match, in that match with the Hometown Man. But again, it's just, it's time to push other new, younger guys. It's time for guys like AJ Francis to be on top. Maybe you can have guys like Elijah challenging him and other people like that, or whatever else it is, or have rivals with him or whatever. But it's time for him to be in that more solid main event spot. Maybe he won't be the champion. Maybe he will be. I don't know, but that is up to them. But it's no more time for Frankie Kazarian. He's had his moment, And yes, he can still be in there and have some big moments and whatnot, but mainly he'll be there to put other people over. So again, like, I would rather see Elijah lose to Francis, even by shenanigans or whatever else it is, even if, like, Kazarian gets involved or whatever, and then you continue the feud with Elijah and Kazarian, and then eventually Elijah beats Kazarian, and then Francis got into the main event, or maybe even won the mid card title, the international title, or whatever else it is, and then Elijah comes back chasing after him or whatever. Because maybe you don't want to push him right into the main event because there's so much going on in that main event. I don't know. And push him to have the world title. I don't know. But again, I don't know. Plus, again, like, it is tough because it's like Trey just won that title. So it's like you don't want to hot potato it, but you do want to tell a story, and you've got all these stories to come. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna talk about, I think, the Moose match next. Yeah, okay, we're gonna talk about that next. But yeah, I just let's see who's gonna win this. I mean, I just said you're gonna have to have a match between Francis and Elijah. You're gonna have to have a, like, long road with, like, Kazarian. I see the hometown man as the person that would take the pin the most likely, so I feel like Francis and Kazarian are probably going to win this match. So that's my prediction. Maybe, like, I could be, like, wrong and then Elijah might turn heel, but I just don't really see that. But anyway, yeah, so that's my prediction for this one. And again, another match that doesn't really need to happen on this show. And this is another match. I think it's way too quick in some ways to be doing this. Is Moose versus Eddie Edwards. What the hell is this? Like, they have burnt through this storyline in like a month or 2 months, something, maybe 3 months. This should have been a 6-month, year-long storyline. You know, like, Eddie basically gets the title or whatever else it is, and then Moose comes back, and then, you know, you go from there or whatever else it is. So you have a lot more other stuff to do. And again, maybe you're like, okay, well, what we actually want to do is we want Moose to almost get there and beating Eddie, and we're showing that he can beat just about everyone else, which is kind of a little bit shitty for them, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But, like, you know, he nearly beats Eddie, but he can't quite beat Eddie, and now he has to go away and come back, and then, like, you know, a few months later or whatever else it is, he's, you know, especially since he's been injured, it's like he could have a legit reason to take a few weeks off. And I know that TNA kind of needs him there because he's one of the main draws there and that sort of thing. But again, like, if he's injured, what can you do? You can't, you know, force him to compete, you know. And, like, they just had a huge thing last time there about Steph DeLander not competing, even though, you know, some doctors were clearing her and they weren't clearing her. So you obviously do care about, like, the health, and obviously I care about that too. I don't want to see people injured or whatever, and seriously injured or whatever. But again, like, you obviously care about the well-being, or even have to pretend, like, at least that you care, because at least, like, you're like, well, our livelihood depends on these guys going out there and killing themselves, basically. So we've got to protect them as much as possible so that we can continue to get something out of them. So at least you've got to care that way. So yeah, unfortunately, I feel like next week it's like a foregone conclusion with Bear and Moose, which really is bad, especially like what you're trying to do with especially what you're trying to do with Myers and Bear or whatever, and what you're trying to do with Cedric. You're trying to give these other guys, you know, a platform to go up against like Leon, like with Cedric, and for Bear and Myers to go up against the Hardys, and potentially like Eddie to go into the world title picture. So like at a certain point, it's like, well, here you are. Yes, it's good for Moose in some regards, but like, yeah, and like I say, Myers, I'm fine with him beating Myers, but that was a really like poor match for the most part. And maybe that is because Moose is injured and yada yada yada, all this other stuff or whatever, and people know too well how big of a jobber Myers is or whatever else it is, uh, and whatnot. But still, it is what it is. Like that was just not, and maybe calculated in a sense of it. Like obviously, it it wasn't a match made to be good because it was only like what 10 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever, under 30 seconds at least, whatever it was. I don't know. I didn't time it. I don't really care. But yeah, like it wasn't anything, you know. And again, like he had a, like obviously again, is part of the story in a way. Like Moose couldn't have wrestled a full-time 15-minute match, not just because the time limit would have been, exceeded, or you wouldn't have had time for anything else or whatever, or you wouldn't have as much time for everything else or whatever. But, that, Moose probably couldn't have wrestled that in that time. And plus, again, like you've got him to have to wrestle 3 different people in the space of this month. Well, actually 4, I guess, when you count in Eddie or whatever. But yeah, like again, like this is like maybe like the story's gonna come back to this in a few months' time. But it does feel a little bit rushed when you've already beaten like 3/4 of the equation, so to speak, in like a month or whatever. And like Cedric Alexander, like I said, he's about to go up against Leon, so he needs some big wins to make him feel like, hey, I might actually have a chance against Leon, and I'm actually a threat to Leon. I'm not just here to be a jobber or whatever else it is. And he's only won like a couple of matches, and that's it. So like him losing even more matches makes it feel like, oh wow, why should we give a shit if he's just gonna lose? And even now, even saying that, it's like, even if he won and won and won, people would still feel like, oh well, why is Leon losing unless he's leaving? Like that would be the only reason people would think that he's losing is if he's leaving. You know what I mean? So again, I don't think I'll believe it until, well, almost believe it until like you're at the point where Leon is, it's almost clear that he's leaving, or whatever that, or he's, moving into another division or doing something else or whatever, or there actually is somebody in that division that can, overcome him and actually has a story and actually is a character that people have invested time and energy into. And there just isn't that person in that division. So I don't know what the X Division's going to do after that. So it's going to be a very weird circumstances. Like you're going to have a match with Cedric and people aren't going to believe one iota. And again, you've got to find a big match for Rebellion. And there's no one there besides maybe Ali, but why would he come after Leon? Maybe you could make it make sense, but like maybe Ali's like, if I win the X Division Championship, I can cash in option C and get my title match or whatever. That could be his motivation. That would be a like great match, I think. But those two, just let them go at it. And like only let Order 4 get involved in the last like, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes or whatever else it is. So you've got that heat going into the last like few minutes. But yeah, like so far I don't see Moose winning, despite him winning on TV a whole bunch, because he's just so banged up, for one, and that's the story you're trying to tell. in a sense of like he might be able to do it, but he's probably not going to be able to do it because of the injuries that he's sustained throughout these few weeks that he's had to go through the system. And also, it's like you're, again, trying to build Eddie into that main event picture. So, again, like, I could see why Brian Myers or Bear might lose because they're more tag team guys. But when it's like Cedric, it's like, oh man, that hurts for him because like he is more of a, or sort of more of a singles guy, at least for now, maybe, or whatever. And then same for Eddie. It's like he's a singles guy for the most part. So again, and again, this doesn't actually have a stipulation on it. Like it doesn't. It's just a regular ass match. One fall to a finish. And whatnot. Maybe like it'll get changed. I don't think it will, but yeah, I just don't see Moose winning because it doesn't make any sense for him to win. It would be better if Eddie does win and Moose comes back later or whatever. And again, maybe it's like, I don't know. I said this where it was like, is Eddie going to actually win the belt? And I honestly don't know whether he is. I don't think he really will. I think, like, again, I said this about a few of the people that are on here. It's just no longer Eddie's time to be the top guy. Yes, he can be one of the top guys, and he can help put other people over into that space, but he's not the guy to hold the belt anymore. He's just not. You need other guys to hold the belt and to get other guys over. I don't think Moose should hold the belt. Not off of Santana. But then again, I don't know whether Santana's gonna retain, but I still think that he probably will. Or maybe like, I still think you've got that potential of saying you've got two people with the activated, well actually three people activated any time to get a world title opportunity, sort of thing. So that is interesting, but yeah, I don't know. I've talked mainly about the men's division. So for a different flavor for a little bit, I'm going to talk about Mara Sade versus Enya Black. Now, this is a match. This is the first match, I think, thus far. Maybe Moose versus Eddie you could regard as being worthy of being on this show, but I still think that it should have been saved to Rebellion, probably. And you could have got more out of, like, the story. But then again, I don't know. What else are you going to do with Eddie? That makes me question it. And then maybe you're going to be like, oh, well, Moose does win or something. Or maybe, like, Moose is going to get a rematch against Eddie, Hardcore War or something. Or, Street Fight or something else. I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see that. But still, as I said, I don't want to take anything away from Mustafa Ali and Steels versus Trey Miguel and Jader. I don't want to take anything away from Elijah and the Hometown Man versus Frankie Kazarian and AJ Francis. But these aren't matches. Like, those should be on the pre-show, if anything. Because these matches, like, they stink. They're nothing for a main show pay-per-view. But this is a main show pay-per-view match. This should not go onto the pre-show or the countdown show or whatever you want to call it. This is a no disqualification match between Mara Sade and Elena Black. I think Mara is going to win this because she needs to get in that main event picture for that Knockouts title. Ariana Grace needs more challengers. I still could feel like maybe you could think about doing a triple threat potentially, but I don't know. That would be actually somewhat really interesting in a way, but I don't know. Elena has a lot. I think she has still a little bit left in the tank, and I still think that she could be the champion. So I still think you could build the division around her and have a lot of people chasing her with the belt. I think you could build the division around Mara too, honestly. So both of these girls, I feel like they are so close to being that main event or in that main event picture for that Knockouts title. But then again, you've got so many other people that are like feeling like they actually are going to be in that picture potentially. So it's like, and that is good in a way because you want to feel like you don't know who's going to win or who's going to break out, and you've got so many people that have so much potential and all this other stuff. You don't want anyone to feel like, or for the most part, you don't want anyone to feel like, oh, well, they're just here or whatever else it is. They're actually going to go somewhere, be somebody, that sort of thing. You better wake up and pay attention. So, that's where I feel for Mara. I think, she's had a few wins here and there and whatnot, but, I don't really count the Ryan Nemeth stuff. I think it was funny and whatnot, but this is the sort of stuff that she needs to be doing, actually challenging people that are in her division or being a tag team person. She needs to do that. She needs to be a person that is going for the belt or going for something. She can't just be, and having a little bit of fun or whatever else it is. That's cool and that's fine, but I think some of the stuff that they did do with her and that was good, but it was just took way too long and whatnot. So I don't know. But yeah, this is the sort of stuff I want to see her do. And yeah, I kind of want to see her win because I do feel like even if you're going to build some sort of triple threat or something else with Elena down the road, or something where Elena gets her win back or whatever else it is, or beats Mara for the title or anything like that, or or even wins the title down the road and then Mara comes back and tries to beat her or anything like that. It's like she's got to have that little bit of an up on Elena. And it's tough because Elena really hasn't really won a whole lot of matches yet. She's won some TV matches and whatnot, but she hasn't had that many pay-per-view matches. So I feel like you need, if you're gonna have her lose here, you need her to go on to another opponent and beat them in the next matchup. And since this is no DQ, it's feels like it's not completely the end, but this is at least to me the end of the chapter, or part thereof end of the chapter. So I feel like, yeah, Mara probably is gonna win here. Even if you're going to set up a triple threat. Speaking of triple threats, you know that at Sacrifice, some people have a 33 and a third chance of winning, but not the genetic freak Danny Luna. No, but seriously, that is what we're talking about. We're talking about Danny Luna versus Ariana Grace versus Lei Lee. Oh my god. Okay, well, I feel like Lei Lee is gonna take the pin in this one, 100%, and unfortunately, 100%, I feel like Ariana is probably gonna retain here. I feel like, though, what you've kind of got to, because if you're gonna do that, which is assumingly what you're gonna do, is that you've got to give not just Danny, which is a freaking easy fix, something to do. I don't think you really need to give Lei something to do, honestly. But that's me. But what's Ariana gonna do after this? You know what I mean? She needs a big time challenger. Could you turn Danny back to being a babyface? Or are you gonna put Jody Threat up against her next month? I don't know. I said this before, where I said I'm much more interested in Danny versus Jody. But the thing about that is, it's well, why let's not wait to build that? Let's have that at Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or one of the, really big shows or whatever. So, that's where I start to feel like, well, maybe you should put it on Danny. But then it's like, well, how are you going to not have Jody challenge her at Rebellion or whatever, that sort of thing? So yeah, you start to feel like Danny's got a challenge at Rebellion, I think. And then you've got to say, okay, cool, let's have this, thing. Let's have Danny lose, unfortunately. Then at some point, Danny wins the title or something like that. And then she goes on and faces Jody at Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or whatever for the title. Like, I don't know. It's tough for me to think like that. Who would be the champion? You know what I mean? Like, Danny has to win it off somebody, unless it's like maybe a triple threat or something like that. I just don't really see it like that. So I would rather. I don't know whether you could put it on Jody, and then Danny somehow beats Jody in like a week or a month or something like that, or whatever else it is, and then she goes on to come back and try to beat her at like Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or whatever. I mean, you could put it on Danny here again, like, and then try to do that, but it's like, I think it would be better off if you just, maybe even if, like, Danny gets the title shot next month and Danny's pissed, and Danny gets involved in the match. Like, I don't know. And then maybe you have a triple threat again. Maybe actually you could do that on TV, where it's like Danny gets the title match on TV, but then Shamaz or DQ or shenanigans or whatever with Danny getting involved. And then it's like, you have another triple threat. I don't know. That starts becoming like you're doing this triple threat dance. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense, but like, I do think that you've got to have those two in mind. And like, I feel like Indy Hartwell is another person that you're kind of starting to build something for. I don't know whether it'll be at Rebellion, maybe, but like, certainly like you're gonna do something with her down the road. I kind of feel like you should be building something with Xia Brookside, but like, you've already pretty much decided, hey, she's just going to be this mid-card tag team person with Lay. And that's the main reason why I've just already dismissed Lay in this match. Because, like, even despite me not absolutely loving her and thinking that she's not, like, the right material that the champion needs, they've shown that, even if they had have said, okay, let's push her properly, then I wouldn't have still believed, but at least they would have pushed her properly. But, like, they haven't pushed her properly. So, you've compounded the issue by saying, hey, we're just also going to treat you like a mid-card act. So that hasn't helped you, And again, maybe that is because, hey, well, we didn't really have much choice in this. WWE just said, hey, do this. Go, do that. Do the thing. Or this is what we're deciding to do. Bye. And TNA was just like, why are we putting up with this? And that's another thing where it's like, I think, like mid last year, or whatever else it was, or even late last year, I think, that WWE was much closer in some ways to almost buying TNA. And, like, obviously they could realistically buy them if they really wanted. But TNA has got to actually agree to being bought out, in a sense. So, and the thing is, like, that's the same thing with anything or anyone or anywhere. WWE has that much money and that much power that they could, in theory, they have the money and whatever else to buy any company. They could buy AEW, they could buy anyone. But It's not so much that they don't have the money, they just don't have the like board approval or whatever. So yeah, but whatever. Yeah, obviously here, well, not so much obviously, but in a sense here, Lay is the third most wheel, I guess, because she has been treated like the third most wheel. Like, as far as when Danny has come back, even if she's not going to win the belt right now, or I feel it highly unlikely that she's going to win the belt right now. And I said Indy might be in contention. You've still got stuff there between Danny and Indy that you could still kind of go back to. I know it's kind of like some people might feel like, oh, that is starting to get old or whatever else it is. But you've still got that there where it can be like still useful, especially if you build it up over a long period of time. But you've just got to, and again, this is where like fans can like and love who they like sometimes or whatever else it is. But if they're not a big enough drawer, or they're not selling enough shirts, or they're not selling enough merch and stuff like that, or enough tickets, or enough pay-per-view buys, or whatever else it is, if you're not dynamic enough to sell the tickets and things like that, then why would the company get behind you, sort of thing? Because that is the ultimate like goal of, you know, looking at somebody and saying, hey, this is our person, or whatever else it is. They're selling shirts, they're doing this, they're doing that. You know, like, that's why, again, like, it's like, will Macklin win? I don't know what merch he's shifting. He's not probably shifting that much now that he's turned heel and whatnot. But still, I feel like he could turn merch for other people or whatever, help turn gates for other people, but it's just... And I know people are like, again, like, Santana's only just won the belt. So it's like, it's really hard to believe that Macklin's going to win. Especially since, like, maybe you'll do that. I don't think you are, but because I think they announced, like, what's happening next week. But it's like, if you had given Macklin a couple of matches on TV, or a few matches on TV, or whatever else it was, during this time, and again, or said, hey, he's back, and now here he comes, you know, and suddenly he earns a title opportunity. Like, and this is why I think, again, said that maybe this should be at Rebellion. I don't know. Because it's like, it would have been more built up, there would have been more there. Like, it's already really good in some ways, but you have done everything that's here in the space of a month, realistically. So again, it feels like a little bit like, oh man, you know, this is really rushed. It doesn't feel like we're gonna get to this point next week, and Macklin's gonna be any more credible than what he already is. You know what I mean? So I just can't see that he'll win, you know, in that regard, because he hasn't been made to look more credible than what he already is. He hasn't won any more matches, and maybe he like the match that he lost in, or whatever else it was the Feast or Fire, so it was just like bad luck or a bad decision or whatever, all that other stuff, whatever. So you could wash that away. He realistically won, but he lost because you picked the wrong chaos or whatever. And again, you're looking at like him coming back, which was like that angle in itself, overall, like everything that you've done in the past few weeks and whatever else, that's great. But again, it's like, well, so what?
Like, 'cause especially like I said last month, um, when you had that tag team match be your main event match. And yes, people can argue about, like, well, realistically, you could think that this is going to be devolve into either Nick Nemeth calling his shot, Eddie calling his shot, or Leon calling his shot potentially even. Um, but that's not what they did. That's not what they did. They decided that, and again, maybe having Steve run in and help causing Santana issues or whatever was going to be good. So you have Santana gone for most of this match or whatever else it is, but then he comes back in the last 5 minutes and then he loses or something, or whatever. I don't know. Or I don't know. I know they wanted to do this thing with Leon and whatnot, and have him beat Nick Nemeth. But the thing is, like I said this as well, like, that's another program that you could have extended out. You could have just extended that out to this show. And I know, again, you've got Eric Young there, but you could have waited for that too. Or you could have had, I don't know, you could have built a match between Leon and Nick Nemeth for maybe Rebellion or something else. I don't know. Or just saved it for another time. You could have just kept that little bit of a story there or whatever else it was. You didn't need to have Leon win there. And again, like, you just have Leon in a regular, well, I say regular, but regular tag team match. That's because you didn't have any other real challengers for him, or you could have just had, Eric Young challenge him then. Or you could have had, at that show rather, you could have had somebody challenging Santana for the title. Instead of just saying, oh, there's but the potential for this person to challenge, there's potential for 20 other people to challenge, or whatever else it is. Yeah, that's cool, but they still have had that for the last couple of months, So it's like, well, nothing's changed, So the point of saying, hey, this person could challenge, that person could challenge, the bug in the corner could challenge, or whatever, isn't relevant. Yes, you've got to keep it in the back of your mind or whatever else it is, but that's it. Like, you should just keep going along with saying, hey, who's going to challenge him now? Who's going to challenge him there? And then say, okay, when are we going to have this cash in? And are they going to succeed? Or again, I think, like I said this before, I feel like the call your shot, the trophies, or the feast or fire, those things should be just things that you can obtain, like any other title or any other prop, effectively, to get you over, So instead of telling this story of defending the belt, you're telling this story of defending your shot to get a title match at any time in the next year. And if you're building that person up and having them win and win and win, these matches, then you're like, okay, it looks more and more and more like they're going to get there at some point. Yes, they might lose as well here and there or whatever, but if you keep them consistently, hey, I'm more than 60-40 or whatever booking, I'm not going, in my positive favor, I'm not going 60-40 in my out of my favor. I'm not going, completely being jobbed out throughout this whole thing, basically, just because, somehow, some way this thing is cursed or some bullshit. It's like, no, we're actually putting the effort into you to say, hey, look at you, you're going to be a big deal. And that does work obviously better for baby faces than heels in some way, but the heels still have to have some level of credibility where they do get to win at some times, even if it is by shenanigans and cheating and all this other stuff. You still got to actually let them win sometimes, because otherwise you cannot have these stories. You cannot have these moments if the heels don't get to win sometimes. You know, that's the thing. People forget that. People just like to have the guys that they like on top. And I'd rather see a great story, you know, like I don't even think like I don't think it like the initial getting back the belt was all right for Santana, but I think it was a bit overdone because it's like, oh, we've already done this, you know, like, so why are we doing it kind of again type thing, and why are we hot potatoing the title and all this other stuff, rah 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 rah. You know, so again, it is very much like that was obviously the right decision in that sense, but again it's like, well, you know, why are we doing this? Where is this all going? What's all the point? You know, not just, you know, we're gonna put the thing back together again, old Humpty Dumpty, because he fell apart or whatever. No, we have a concise, clear plan of like how we're getting from A to B to C to D to E to F to G. You know, like that whole thing. That should be um the idea of these things, like getting from where we're at. Why are we doing this? And again, maybe it was because like they wanted to have AJ Styles wrestle on the show, but then WWE was just like, nah, fam, sorry. You've done everything for us and we've basically done nothing for you, but nah, sorry, we're not doing anything for you. Bye. And that's, I think, again, that's the turning point of this relationship, at least of recently. I think TNA has started, and I think like Ariana winning the title, I think that is a bit different, perhaps, and you could say that that's a sign that it's not, or whatever. Or you could say it's an outlier, or whatever else it is. But maybe even Stacks winning the title, but like he only held the title for like a month, so whatever. And like again, maybe like we will see Ariana lose this belt really soon. I don't know, because like except for Trick Williams, basically every person that's come from WWE into TNA, like besides Ariana, who has been there off and on and off and off and on, whatnot, has been only there for like a couple of months. And now Stacks has actually been there for like more than a couple of months or whatever. But like just about everybody else has only been there for like a couple of months at the most. So it's like, oh, okay. And again, when you're trying to tell the same effective story with like the Knockouts division and with the World Title division, yes, there's that bit more of jeopardy in a sense, but it's like, well, we should have just told one of these stories, you know, instead of telling both of these stories, because, you know, it muddies the waters. It makes everything feel the same. You're not saying anything different, or you're not doing anything different with each division or with each thing. You're just saying, hey, and again, that's the same thing that you're kind of doing here again. You're going through the same motions of, we were going to put it on an NXT person and then some TNA person's going to win it. Cool, great. But that's been done. And not to say that you can't do it, but it's been done so much, and especially since, because WWE have continually been like, do this for us, and TNA has been, all right, we'll do it. Oh, sorry, we can't honor whatever we said we'd do with them with you, so we've got to have them back now. Bye. That's happened several times, where it's like, here you go, we're going to give you this person that we're not really using and we don't really give a shit about. Bye. And then it's like, oh shit, they're actually getting really over or doing really well. We want them back. Now bye. See ya. That it's either that or it's complete ADHD booking of, which is basically the same thing, but they're not being as mean, I guess, in some way. But it's still ridiculous, bro. Um, and I'm surprised that they, like with Trick, maybe it's because again they could do stuff with him on NXT in a way, and be like, ha, he's the TNA champion and whatnot, and do all this stuff with him and build him up and whatnot. And yes, it did stuff for TNA to an extent, and TNA is in a better place than it has been in the last 10, 15 plus years or whatever it's been. At least since they got off Spike TV. This is the best that they're numbers, and I've said that in another video, that they've got since that era. It's certainly not up to that era, but it is certainly up to, or at least beyond, everything else that they've done since then in terms of raw numbers on TV or whatnot. So again, there is positivity to be had and to be seen and whatnot in some of this stuff. But again, when you just again, the law of diminishing returns. Every time that you do this, especially when you do it one after the other, and especially since it's the same story, one after the other, it's like, wow, you've done this 3 times now, and so now it's like, man, no, again, no one really cares that much because, well, why should we? We've not been shown why we should care. And maybe that'll change in the next month or so. And hopefully it does. But again, since there's no yes, there is challenges and there is direction, but it's not like this is what's going on or whatever else it is. And it is good to have a diverse division or whatever else. But again, it's we need to see where we're kind of going and why, or what the point of this is. Not just, oh, well, we're going to do the same thing that we've done twice, or at least in this division, again, with basically the same results of people just going, finally it's over, now we can bloody well move on and get back to what we were doing and just forget about WWE coming in here and wrecking everything and changing everything and then being like, oh, sorry, we can't, have our guy compete with you guys for any longer. We need them now. Bye. Or saying, oh, we, whatever. Oh, shit, we didn't realize how good they were or whatever. So now we actually want them back and we can't, whatever. Let them compete over there because we need them every single week because they're so good now. Now that we know how good that they are. Thanks for showing us how good they were. Bro, come on, bro. That's what I mean. It sucks so bad where it's you don't really care about giving them anything. And again, yes, AJ appeared on a couple of these shows or whatever, which I guess is some sort of all right, we'll give you AJ, but he's not wrestling. That's what everyone wanted. That's what everyone wanted. I know I was like, oh, I don't really want to see AJ and Kazarian because it's a match we've already seen 1,000 times, so I'm not that interested in that regard. But the thing is, I can't say no to seeing AJ. I was hyped to see AJ because it's AJ and he's the GOAT of TNA. So no matter what he's going to do, I'm pretty well hyped just to see him no matter what he does. But it was a little bit disappointing to be thinking, oh, this dude is retiring soon. And they're just going to be oh, maybe one of the last chances that he has to actually wrestle in this company, potentially. Nah, he's not going to do it. No, he's just not going to do it. We promised that, I don't know whether they actually did promise that they would let him do that. But after TNA has literally given WWE every single thing that they can give them, pretty much, and WWE has taken literally everything that they wanted from TNA, pretty much, man, you can't throw them a bone? No, can't throw them a bone at all. And like it's the same thing with like the WWE main roster and things like that, where it's like um you've got a lot of these guys that you just do not, and I've said this so many times, you just do not give a shit about, like LA Knight. He's there and he's over as hell, but you're just like, nah, we don't care. We don't care how over he is or whatever else. Nah, we're just sticking to Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, you know, that's it. We're sticking to our, handful of handpicked guys. You're not one of our handpicked guys, LA, so screw you. Bye. Like, I heard this from Sean Sapp there on, I think it was Wrestle Talks podcast, where he was talking about how dirty TNA had treated Mike Santana. You want to talk about how dirty TNA treated Mike Santana? Mike Santana actually won the belt in TNA. How about that? What's LA Knight done in WWE? Won the US title? Meandered in the mid card? That's about it. And you could say, oh, well, Santana was meandering in the mid card. No, he wasn't. He won 90-odd% of his matches. He was in the upper main card of most of that run. And yes, he lost to Moose, he lost here, he lost there. He lost very rarely. And then when he did lose, he had a story that brought him back to the title. What has LA Knight done? Nothing. He hasn't had stories that have brought him up, down, left, right, anywhere. He hasn't done anything. You want to talk about how dirty TNA has treated Mike Santana? Talk about how dirty WWE has treated freaking LA Knight, bro. There are a bunch of people that are just the same. Miro, who just came back. Aleister Black, who recently came back. Even Powerhouse Hobbs. What's his new name now? Something. I can't remember his name yet. But yeah, like, he hasn't even been seen on TV yet. Like, he debuted at the Rumble. Where the fudge is he? And, like, there's so much conjecture about what Jericho's doing. And I know he's been doing some tours with his band and whatnot and all that other stuff. But you would think that he would have turned up by now or done something by now. And I know I think it's like he's trying to get WWE to be like offering him more money by saying, hey, I'll just go and work for TNA or whatever. And things like that. And he's also trying to get TNA to be like, hey, I would be interested, but you've got to bring the big money for me, because I might go to WWE, and WWE's got some big checkbooks, so you've got to bring the money for me to come down there. And so he's trying to play the games, trying to play the system, and trying to get, that big money to come in and do stuff, which absolutely he deserves to get some big money to come in and do stuff, absolutely. But I don't know whether it's working that well in WWE, because again, like, they've got a absolute litany of people a mile long that they aren't even realistically using. So you just add Jericho to that list of guys that are floating around the mid-card, not really doing anything, and they don't really give a shit about. They didn't even really give a shit about AJ retiring. They were like more forced into doing something with him because he said, nah, I'm done. And in his contract, he said, hey, you've got to do something with me in Georgia. So they were like, and I think I can't remember what this was on, but I think it was in something, and they said about the Netflix was saying, hey, we have to have a run-in, somebody attack AJ or whatever after he's had a little bit of a speech or whatever else it is. So the speech was only going to be like a couple minutes long of him like throwing his gloves and stuff on
on the mat and whatnot. That was basically going to be it. And then he wanders off, and then he gets attacked or whatever. But yeah, like somehow, like I think the Undertaker said, "Nah, that ain't the way it's gonna go," because he did some stuff for me. Was it, which WrestleMania was that? I can't remember which WrestleMania it was. I think it was 36, 37, whichever pandemic one it was. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, he had me in that match, and helped put me over and helped put me out of my retirement match. So I'm going to do something special for him. In his, like, not in his retirement match, but in his retirement moment or whatever. So this is the way it's going to go. I'm just going to go out there, and I'm not going to tell him, hey, this is what's going to happen, but just expect something, stay in the ring, blah, 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 because something's going to happen. And lo and behold, he comes down to give him the Hall of Fame, which I think they begrudgingly, said yes to, I think, which I don't want to say that he hasn't earned it in his career. I don't even know whether I should say that he hasn't earned it in his WWE career, because it's tough. I just don't know if and it's not always about achievements. Sometimes it is about, like, what did you do more behind the scenes? Who did you help? How much have you helped? All that sort of stuff that, gives somebody the wink and the nod or whatever else it is to get into that space. For TNA, his Hall of Fame, like, if it doesn't happen, it's stupid and should happen. Absolutely. 100%. He should 100% be in the TNA Hall of Fame. Whether it happens is another thing. He might have to wait till he's out of a WWE contract to come and say, all right, I'm going to go in the TNA Hall of Fame now, because now I can, because now WWE can't control my decisions or whatever, or what I'm going to do. And I think that they did that to somewhat appease him and say, no, just stick with us, whatever, And maybe I'm reading wrong into that, being like he was injured and he was just like, dude, I've got to call it quits. I've got to call it quits now, or whatever. And I think he was even saying that to them for a long time. I've got to call it quits now. No, I've got to call it now. And they were just like, nah, one more match, AJ, one more match, 10 more matches, 20, like they did that with Big Show when he became ECW champion. And I know it was a different regime and whatever else, but they do this a lot of the same sort of stuff. They're just like, nah, we you just need to wrestle 10, 20, 30, 400 billion more matches. Sorry, bye, sort of thing. They don't really care, which is like a real, and it is because, again, they're corporately run, they're corporately owned. The Netflix people are telling them, no, this is what we want, so this is what you're going to give us, sort of thing, mostly. So yeah, like, and that's a problem. I said this before. How much influence is not TKO? About to say TKO. How much influence is AMC going to have on TNA, and how much influence is WWE going to have on TNA? And therefore, how much influence are the other things going to have on TNA? Because that's been the big problem of, like, like, you've seen it in AAA. With once WWE bought AAA, they said, oh yeah, we might send some of our superstars or whatever else down there, or do whatever, yada yada yada, all this other stuff. But yeah, we really will be more hands off. First thing that bloody happens basically is Undertaker's bloody booking the bloody shows now, or at least co-booking the shows. And I know that's because Conan's like sick and whatnot, or whatever, has to go to hospital and all this other stuff. But again, and you're seeing a whole bunch of like hands-on approach from WWE, not that hands-off approach of
nah, you just do you, and we're just, you know, securing and whatnot and helping you financially or yada yada yada, whatever. Or we're just fishing for talent and things like that to bring up in another way, which is like, well, that's what NXT is for, you know, which, you know, like, I think that they really need that connection between AAA and NXT because like that will be a big thing to help both brands in some ways, you know. But like in some ways, it's the worst idea ever because again, you're gonna have this, and maybe that's another reason for like WWE being like more hands off with TNA because like for one, they don't own it, but for two, they're just like, oh man, we have 500 freaking shows that we need to deal with. We cannot focus on what's going on with TNA, so they can do mostly whatever they want, as long as this storyline, the one storyline that we've got going with them, sort of right now is going on, and that pays off later on, whatever, yada yada, whatever, you know. So yeah, and yeah, maybe that is somewhat some of it. Actually, I wanted to bring this up, and I haven't yet. Road Dogg recently left TNA, and he was I just said that he left TNA. He recently left WWE. I'm gonna get my friggin' companies right. Figure out what the fuck I'm saying here. But yeah, he used to work in TNA back in the day. So is there any potential for him to come into TNA? Now, I will say that he's had a few good ideas in the past, but he's also had some really bad ideas or some really tone deaf ideas or some tone deaf opinions and things like this here and there as well. But perhaps that is because, again, Triple H or the other creative members kind of said, hey, you've just got to say that the Daniel Bryan thing was all a plan for all along or whatever else it was. And I know, again, it was a different regime under Vince and stuff like that at the time or whatever. But like when it came time to say, hey, what about that whole Daniel Bryan thing? He was told to say, hey, no, that was the plan all along, bro. You know, or whatever. So, and some other things, whatever. But yeah, could he turn up in TNA? Well, I don't say turn up, but could he help behind the scenes in TNA? I mean, like, as long as he's perhaps not the sole voice and the one making all the decisions and that sort of thing, I think he could be an asset. So I haven't really talked about it. It's not really much to talk about. So, but yeah, I do think it is important to talk about. But still, that is the card for now here on Sacrifice. As I said, next week is the last week before the big show, or the go home show, so to speak. Do they have it written on here somewhere? I don't know whether it is. Maybe it was on Twitter or Facebook or something. Maybe. Let us see. Let's see if I can find it. Because you've got the match between Harley Hudson, Myla Grace, and Danny Luna versus the Diamond Collective, aka Victoria Crawford, Tessa Blanchard, and Mila Moore. You've got probably some other stuff going on. That's the main one that I remember. Like, you're obviously going to have something with Rosemary as well. Let's see. Sometimes these things are really hard to find. Sometimes they're easy to find. I don't know whether it's... Would have been in the last couple of hours, surely. Um, so Mustafa Ali is going to go up against BDE. BDE is clearly losing that. I said before, I said that with Jody Threat and Tessa, that whole thing, I feel like, again, you've got to have opponents for Ariana. So Jody, I feel like Jody could lose this, and then you have a big time match between Jody and Tessa at the next show. Actually, I did say that we might look at the spoilers. I might look at the spoilers in a second. Just to see what other matches have been announced, if I can find them. Is this the upcoming? Yeah, this is the upcoming. So the system, Myers and Cedric Alexander are going to go up against Mike Santana and Leon Slater, which really doesn't have many implications that much. Jeff Hardy versus Brian Myers. So again, like I said this before, where's the announcement for the tag team match? You know it's going to happen, so just announce it already. Brian Myers and Bear Bronson versus the Hardys. Cedric and... Oh, well, I was about to say Cedric. BDE and Mustafa Ali, Bear Bronson versus Moose, and the 6-woman knockouts tag match. So Moose is clearly winning his match, in my opinion. Well, I think so, because again, he's going on to face Eddie at the pay-per-view, so... But it makes Bear look really, really weak and really bad. Especially like you should have probably had this match be on pay-per-view, that or not had it at all. You know. Myers is clearly losing to Hardy. He's basically just a jobber, so he does jobs. That's pretty much all he does. So yeah. BDE is clearly losing. Feel like Jody's team is losing so that she can have a big time match against Tessa. Now, why would the system beat Leon and Mike Santana? Just to send that message, or I don't know, because then you're starting to be like, hey, you're muddying the waters a little bit. Maybe, but then again, you start saying, well, you've got to start building these other matches and these other feuds down the road. You can't just, have them happen, or have them announced 2 weeks before or a week before or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like any of these matches really is leading to a whole lot. Because Mustafa Ali's match is already set with Trey. So we know what he's doing. BDE is doing literal nothing, so it doesn't really matter what he's doing. Bear Bronson's probably in a tag team match, same with Myers, so it doesn't really matter what happens here in some sense. Same with Myers. We don't really have anything for Edwards and Cedric yet, but you've got something for both Santana and Leon, so it's yeah, you can start pushing them as a threat down the road, which I think you should do, but I don't know. Yeah, you can't forget what you're actually trying to do. And then you've got the 6-woman tag, which I've already basically talked about. Plus, again, you could at least hopefully do something with Myla and Harley against Victoria and Mila Moore. So they could actually wrestle on a show. Maybe that'll be in the pre-show. So, yeah, I don't know. What else could be in the pre-show? some random match between some random team. Actually, I said this was potential for happening. Some match between ODB potentially and somebody, maybe Mickey James, I don't know, and the Elegance brand, but that does feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity because it is two legends, at least one legend potentially in that match coming back for first match in I don't know how long, but it's like, yeah, it's like ODB. I don't know what sort of ring shape she's in, so maybe take the pressure off, and having a tag team match is good, plus having it on the pre-show or whatever else you want to call it, just to take the pressure off a little bit even more. You're not on the main card, so you don't have to, go out there and have a 10-star classic or whatever else it is. Not to expect that everyone has to go out there and have 5-star classics or whatever else it is, but that's the thing. Like, the main card, like I said before, a couple of those matches don't really belong on that main card. They should just be shifted to the pre-show, because they do not belong on there. And I would even think, like, I wouldn't say the Mila Moore, Myla Grace, Harley Hudson, and Victoria Crawford tag team match should be on the main show, but at least like Victoria and Jody should be on the main card, I feel like. I don't know what you're going to do with Edwards and Cedric on this show, but yeah. Or on this upcoming show, I should say, I guess. Plus, again, like, you probably want Edwards to feel strong so that he's going into his match with Moose as strong as what he can do. So yeah, I'm feeling like, yeah, the system would win that match next week. So yeah. At least there is some of that going on in my mind of this should happen or might happen. I don't know. You could have something for Mr. Elegance, I guess, on the pre-show too, or the hometown man. That's perfect right there. Hometown man versus. Oh well, actually, he's wrestling in another match, isn't he? I'm sure there's something else you can get him to do, or he's just going to be with the Elegance brand and be the heater or whatever. So, but yeah, whatever. I think those are all my thoughts on this show for now. And yeah, we'll catch up hopefully next week to see what else is announced. Actually, no, I said we were going to look at the spoilers, so let's find the spoilers. So I don't know what date it was. This was, where was this? I can't remember, bro. Is this the one? I don't know. It's not El Paso, was it? It wasn't El Paso. That was ages ago. Yeah, that was like last year, dude. This was, where was this? This was not New Orleans. That's not right. That's next week. I don't know. Let's see if I can find it. It doesn't say where this was freaking taped. It was taped like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't remember where they were from. I can't remember. I don't remember. Let's see if I can find it. going to have to go see if I can dig. That's this week. Let's see. Atlanta, GA. Yeah, that's right. Oh, come on. Stop. Let's... Oops. Let's put in 2026 just to make sure. Let's actually put in spoilers. This could be it. So what have we got here? Is this the right night? Oh. So where are we? Da. Oh, so yeah. I'm not gonna. I suppose we'll go through who does win. So, the rest of this will be most of it will be spoilers. The main things that we want to talk about. Jeff Hardy defeated Brian Myers. However, his celebration was short-lived. The system did a post-match attack on Matt and Jeff. The Righteous came out for the save. So Bear Bronson versus Moose. Moose secures the victory. Interference was attempted by the systems. The interference was unexpectedly neutralized by the Atlanta Falcons, who were seated around the arena. So those are Moose's former NFL friends or whatever. They celebrated in the ring with TNA World Champion. That's not right. Unless they celebrated with, like, Santana at some point. I don't know. Ali defeats BDE. Following the match, Order 4 attacked BDE until Trey Miguel came in for the assist. Blah, blah, blah. Yep. So there's nothing really here that says anything new. So that's the third. Is this it? Could this be it? So, yeah, Moose does that. Atlanta Falcons share the ring. Defeated the Angel Warriors. Defeats Jada Stone. Ricky Sosa. So this one, defeat the Tessa Blanchard and her Diamond Collective defeat Mila Moore, Harley Hudson, and Jody Threat. Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth defeat the Righteous, that was tonight. Eddie and Cedric defeat Leon and Mike. So it doesn't really say anything here about, like, upcoming matches. So let's see if it is written here. Mr. Elegance defeat Mike Jackson. Buff Bagwell appeared and did an interview from the stage. What the heck? He spoke about his amputation and asked fans for forgiveness for behavior in the past couple of decades, and said that if they can get behind him, he'll walk down to the ring and compete for TNA one final time. Kazarian came out and trashed Bagwell on the mic before Elijah ran him off, and he asked Bagwell to walk with him. Walk with Elijah. Okay, that's kind of cool. To an extent, whatever. Moose defeats that. So yeah, there's just like no, like there's some stuff that's here that we didn't know that was happening or whatever, but it doesn't have anything on the actual like announcements. Because it's all just this person beats this person, that person beats this person, yada 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 yada. Somebody comes out, does this, somebody does this, whatever. Not where does this go? Yeah, so I've looked at a couple of sources now. I guess I'm going to look at one more maybe here. What? No, it doesn't really. Yeah, that's the same one. That's the same one. Okay, so this one says 3rd and the 6th. Oh, it's 5th and the 6th, rather, sorry. Which I think there's only those two. So, yeah. Let's see if there's anything else here that refers to... No, it doesn't really say anything about like what's upcoming. So that's basically all that we do know, unfortunately. It sometimes is a little bit sad or whatever to find out some of these spoilers, but these spoilers have been out here for like weeks and months at this point, realistically. So it's like, yeah, at this point, dude, I just need to know what matches are actually happening, because again, they haven't actually, like, besides now, like, they haven't announced very many matches. So I just wanted to be like, okay, is there anything else that we're really going to miss out on before next week or whatever, before the next show? So yeah. Yeah. At least I was pretty well right with reading those, with reading how these matches would go and whatnot. But yeah, that I think is it now for this one properly. After I've rambled on for quite a while here, but I had to find these other articles and whatnot as well. So that does take some time sometimes. So sorry about that, guys. It took a while in this one. I wanted to cover the spoilers and whatnot. And obviously, this, as I said, it's not very much news, and it doesn't look like there's a whole lot happening in the next couple of weeks or whatever, realistically, at least booked up to Sacrifice. So we'll have to wait and see what they do announce, if anything. And yeah, we'll definitely come here to review those and to give my predictions and whatnot of the show. And then obviously after the show's gone off the air, we'll have our review. So yeah, be sure to tune into that one. Otherwise, I hope you have enjoyed this one, and I hope you're all nice and well to each other, and hope you will join me again in another one.